Well, hello there. Welcome to our special edition of Picture This. I'm David Ebel, and I'm a photographer, and I capture beautiful pictures from around the world and try to tell stories with them that touch hearts. One of the exciting things of what we're doing is we also have the chance to bring in people with unique backgrounds, so we can tell our stories and learn from each other. So this evening, I've got a chance to bring in one of my dear friends, Bill Costello. And Bill and I are going to have a chat with us. If you picture in your mind that we're sitting around a fireplace and we're ready to eat and we relax and we're having a good time, and then most of the guys get ready to go home, and instead of going home, you say, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Sure. And then that question is something that the guy can't work out on his own. And because he asked the question, the other guys are able to help walk him through to a better answer. That's kind of the premise for what we're doing. We're going to not only have fun and see some music and meet some people, but there's an opportunity for us to be able to share one with another. And if there's a challenge that needs to be met, we can do it together. And but right now, I want to start off with introducing you to an event that we're doing. Here we go. We do a weekly thing called Picture This, and the advice part of it is an email address, picture this advice at Gmail. And what we'd like to do is to invite you to ask their personal questions. They can be anonymous, whatever, but you just need to email them to us with the question, and we will work on answering it. Second part of that is we're doing a giveaway. A couple of weeks ago, Kenneth was our musical guest, and he donated one of his brand new albums, and I'm putting in one of my pictures, and together we're going to somebody's going to win a gift worth almost $200, and you're lucky. You've got a week, so all we have by next Tuesday at noon. If you haven't sent it in, it'll be too late to win the prize. But you will have times from right now until Tuesday at noon to send us an email at picturethisadvice at Gmail and send us your name, your address, and your phone number in case we need to reach you. And somebody's going to get a phone call, and we're going to be firming up all the address so we can send our gifts to you. So this is a good address to also keep. So if you're talking to someone and they say they need to talk to someone that's beyond them, that's one of my skills through the years of ministry, which I was in before retirement. We did 45 years of helping people work through their problems. So if you've got questions or problems, that's a good address to have and to share. So we're going to be giving away the pictures and everything next Tuesday during our program. So we're asking you to join us, and together we'll have a great time and maybe do a little learning along the way. And but today this is Bill, and I've known Bill for over 20 years now.
Has it been that long?
Just about. But we both are people who our lives have moved us around a lot. And when I retired, we had hit 20. Our retirement home is our 27th address. And I wasn't even in the military and still bounced around that much. Ministry is like that. You go where the need is. And we've had a great time, and we have been able to help a few people along the way. But today we'd like to let you get to know a little bit about Bill. And I met Bill when we were in Bakersfield, California. We were the ones, the officers in charge, the pastors, if you will, for the Bakersfield Corps. And our direct assignment was to build a better relationship with the community than we had. Through no fault of anybody's, there'd been some of the people who'd been there before me had medical issues and had to move on. And so they sent us in to pull it together and get it going. And one of the ways we needed to do that was the Salvation Army, especially in that area, is very heavy on disaster response. And I came in and found out that no one was left trained to do all that. So I went out and got all the training and all the experience and got everything working. And then soon as I got that done, I started putting together a team so that we could respond in disasters. But that team grew. And one of the things that happened is that the Salvation Army was putting together a Christmas program that started at Thanksgiving Day with a deep fried turkey and a homemade meal for anyone who walked up. And we did it out of doing it uniquely. We did it with a mixture of people from all different beliefs, everything from people who didn't believe at all to people who believed all kinds of different things. But because we agreed that the community was more important than the instant, uh, we gave out 100 turkeys in one morning through lunch. And during that period of time when they started cooking the turkeys at between 3:30 and 4 in the morning, uh, the cameraman who came up to talk to me was Bill, and he was the TV cameraman for the main station in town, and we became fast friends. We ended up having a lot in common, and the thing that really excited me is that I've always wanted to learn how to use a camera and take good pictures. So I could buy a camera, but I still couldn't take good pictures. And Bill is a photographer, so he gave me a good foundation so I could take some beautiful pictures. And then in turn, we invited him to come worship with us on Sundays, and he fell in love with what we were doing, and so we had lots of years of that, and then through the years since, we keep in touch. So, Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so that others can know you like we do?
Okay. Well, currently I'm a truck driver, but I've done a lot of different things, as you know. I've
Hmm.
I've drove an ambulance for a while in both Los Angeles and New Orleans, running 911 calls in both those cities. Like you mentioned, I was in a news photographer for about 15 years. Uh, Lived all over the country doing that. Um, Worked for basically all the networks, and then did shots with all the cable networks as well. Even though I wasn't actually employed with them, we were affiliates of them. So I did a lot of work for Fox, CNN, and MSNBC, the whole alphabet.
Hmm.
I've done a whole bunch of different things outside of that. I worked as a commercial diver medic in the Gulf of Mexico out on the oil rigs. I was the facilities manager for the Salvation Army rehab program up in Anchorage, Alaska. I worked as a dispatcher for an alarm company for a while. Um, there's a whole bunch of different things that I've done, and like
Hmm.
through all this, I have moved around quite a bit. I think I've lived in 12 different states now. Um, I've basically always like just tried something new when the need came or the time came, and it was like, okay, let's see what else I can do. And it's been a long journey.
I know that once we met and the disaster stuff came up, we were able to teach some of these master classes to equip people who do help people in emergencies, so that they could do an effective job of helping them people cope with their problems and get past the disaster and begin the coping process of healing. And Bill and I did a lot of travel feeding with the travel kitchen on wheels called the Canteen, and we hooked up ham radios uh, with all our vehicles, and so that we could, in the disaster, we could get to each other even if the phones went down. Amateur radio is a tried and true way of getting through when nothing else will, and so that became part of it. But in the process of all that, I started offering these classes to the community, and uh, Bill particularly seemed to to enjoy all the classes for a while, and that what we did when we did one of the larger classes, we were teaching some more challenging things about dealing with post-traumatic issues and all kinds of things. And Bill, being my friend, decided to put himself right in the front row, and we did some of our classes and doing fine. But I had warned everybody at the beginning that as we teach the class, if you suddenly feel overwhelmed, or kind of weak, or you're overly thirsty beyond normal, those could be signs of something post-traumatic still hanging back in the memory. So if it happens, you need to just slip out of the room and let us know, one of us know, and we'll come and help you through it. And wouldn't you know, first person that had to slip out was the person I never imagined would have to slip out. It was Bill. You want to tell them what happened?
Yeah. We were going through the stuff, and it was bringing up some feelings from a ambulance call that I had in New Orleans about 10 years previous that had never been dealt with. And the short version of it was there was a young child that had 80 stab wounds that I had to deal with, and didn't know what I was getting into when the call happened. It came out as a stabbing call on a Sunday afternoon, and we rolled on the call, and they brought one child out that obviously had some traumatic injuries, and somebody said, "Oh, there's another one still in the house." And figuring that they had brought the worst one out, I told my partner, "Okay, I'll go check it out." And I got in there, and that's when I found this 6-year-old boy with all the knife wounds. And I had really no equipment that I could do anything with. And I basically just had to sit there with the child until I could get another unit out there. And, it just, the end of the story basically is we took the child into the hospital. And when we got there, they were ready to take him up to surgery. And the mom said, "No, I don't want him going into surgery because he'll get blood there. And I object to that on religious grounds." And the doctor, to this day, I'll never forget it. He turned to the police officer that was standing there and said, "Place this child in protective custody because he is going up to surgery right now." A week later, that child walked out of the hospital on his own.
That's actually a miracle.
Yes, it is. With all those wounds, like I said, there was 80 wounds on this child. Only 3 actually did any real damage other than just the superficial cuts. There was 2 dicks in the stomach and 1 in the colon, and that was it.
Those are all surgically repairable.
Absolutely.
One of the things that people don't realize is when you do, even with all the training you can find, when you walk into these events, many of the people who do it all the time get the feeling like they're a little bit bulletproof. They get to the point that they figure, "I've seen it all. I've seen the worst. So this will be easy." But there's something psychological wired into us. There is a level where it's just too much. And to be able for us to cope through it, so sometimes our psychological pieces start pushing buttons inside, and we become overwhelmed, and we cover by pushing and trying, kind of stuffing it in the back and going forward. But at some point, that, even if you don't deal with it now, it is going to come back and meet you later.
Yes.
And so Bill had 10 years from when he saw it till when he had to face it. And I think he's happy that he waited and got the right kind of response. But his bosses basically told him, "Suck it up, Buttercup. We got work to do. If you're a wimp, we can't use you. Let's go."
Yeah, I mean, and that was would have been back in the mid 90s, and that was the attitude with all these services. Was just that, okay, we're not, get over it. You're a tough guy or a tough gal. Deal with it. And Now, thankfully, most departments do have some sort of a counseling service after these difficult calls. But back then, there was very few that had offered that to their people.
I ended up being one of the ones who taught fire, police, everybody in the area. Once we got the training, I ended up being the chairman of the oversight committee for trauma for all of Kern County, and in that regard, I got to teach the classes to many people, and a lot of them initially were kind of resentful that I was there trying to tell them when they felt like they didn't need all this. This was just something the boss made me go to. But after and the most part, after the class was done, or 3/4 of the way in, several of them came back and talked to me privately and had to apologize for their attitude because they just thought it was going to be another stack of papers. And in fact, it changed some lives, and we know for sure it saved 5 marriages. So we were really grateful that during that period of time, we were able to touch a lot of lives. But it became a ministry, not only for me to do it to help others, because I was a pastor and people expected it. But once Bill got into it and he started coming to the church to see what was up, he fell in love with Jesus because Jesus helped him through the crisis. And he ended up being one of the most active members of the church for years until he did move. And wherever he goes from there, he seems to end up back in it again.
Yeah, it does have a draw. It has become one of the things that I really enjoy, and I love doing the disaster work and the counseling part of it, because of course that's a big part of it. It's one thing to go out and maybe cook up a bunch of meals and whatnot, but it's quite another to actually sit down with the people that have been evacuated from their homes. Don't know if they're going to have a home to go back to, and the doubt and the worry that they're going through, and just kind of help them through it.
And would you be able to do that if you hadn't have gone through that training?
I doubt. I probably could have done it, but not as effectively.
Well, and I agree with you. You could have, but at what price?
Yes.
Because if you don't have help, at some point or another, it's going to implode. It's going to end up turning on you, and you end up hurting and worse. Yes. And we've seen so much of that.
Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, going through the class and then having the reaction from the call 10 years previous was in a lot of ways a good thing. Because it made me realize the importance of debriefing or working through these things, and it also gave me a story to tell others to say, hey, look, I went through this. I got through it, and let me help you get through what you're going through.
Sometimes that little bit of knowledge from that training with a little bit of practice can get you to the place where somebody will walk up and you can just see a glazed look in their eye, and you realize they're not completely with me right now. They're stuck in their head.
Yes.
And you can set them aside away from the crisis, not far away, but just where it's not visually right on top of them, and begin to work through it with them and help them get started on a recovery situation. It may take years to get through it because it didn't take a week to get started in that digging that hole. Yes. But it's so nice to know that if you're going through tough times, there are people who are trained, willing, and eager to help you or your family members or friends through a serious situation like that. And that's become a big piece of my whole career. I did a lot of different things, but when we moved to Bakersfield and that training came available and I took it, it changed how I serve people for the rest of my career. And I want you to know about this because We live in a world that's interdependent. Nobody can say that they're all by themselves. Somehow we all connect. And it may not be you that has the problem, but it can be somebody else who is in the crisis, and you walk in and they say, "Hey, Bill, I heard you talk to people. Can you come over here? I want to introduce you to Mary." And there it is. You weren't looking
Yes.
for it, but there's these divine appointments where God just leads the people together, and you with the training end up with an opportunity to help the person who desperately needs the way out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of those things that having that tool in the toolbox is invaluable, because when you need it, you need it.
Absolutely. Now, Bill's done a variety of things. As a matter of fact, in the disaster realm, he was up in Alaska and did some feeding for some dog sled events.
No, actually, it was for a wheelchair race.
Okay.
It's one of the toughest wheelchair races in the world, where these athletes who are have some sort of a serious disability, whether they are are missing a leg or an arm or a couple of legs. We actually had a quadriplegic that was in the race one year, and they
Impressive.
go all over Alaska. Now, he had his limbs, but he didn't really have use of them. He had a little bit in the arm, so he was able to move the chair. And they were doing, depending on the leg, it was different legs all around the state, and they would go, could be 20, 30, 40, 50 miles a day in the wheelchair. And the normal race that they did would start up in Fairbanks, and they would do a run there. Then the next day they would go down and they would do a run going into Denali National Park. And that was kind of a short one, but it was a challenging one. And then there were different stages as they made their way south towards Anchorage. The last day they actually went into Anchorage on the wheelchairs, but the day before that, they basically, I forget exactly where the starting point on it was, but they went up Hatcher Pass, which is it's nerve-wracking driving up that, let alone trying to go up in a wheelchair. It is very steep, very curvy roads. And what was really amazing about doing this is here you had all these men, and I did it 2 years because they did it every other year. And the first year it was like an anniversary event, and they did have men and women. The second time I did it, women were invited, but there weren't any that showed up for it because it is a very tough race. But these guys are great competitors. I mean, they all want to win, like any other athlete out there. But these guys were the nicest guys. The one gentleman that was the quadriplegic that I mentioned earlier, it was his first year doing the race,
Mm-hmm.
and he was going up Hatcher Pass, and he was having a real hard time. And if he hadn't finished within a certain amount of time, he would have been out of the race. So 2 of the other competitors, after they finished, they went back down and they helped him get up the mountain.
Excellent.
Like I said, these were the most amazing people, and every one of them had positive attitudes, and they were great. And I got a chance to really get to know a lot of them because I'd be up first thing in the morning, usually about 4 or 5 o'clock, out at our mobile kitchen that we had there in Alaska, and we would make breakfast for them, and then we would serve them lunch. There was even one gentleman who he was a competitor that had been in every race since it started. And he came out one morning and he helped us cook. He didn't have to do that. I mean, I had, my crew, and we could handle it fine, but he wanted to help out. He wanted to give back a little bit. I mean,
I hope you
like
took
I said,
some pictures of that.
I don't remember if I did. I'll have to go. That's on that hard drive that crashed that I'm trying to get repaired. So we'll find out.
You can bring it when next time we talk. You can talk some more about that.
Okay.
But today, we've covered a few of these things, but I know you, and so I can say this: it's not always been easy.
No, it hasn't.
Sometimes it's been really difficult. How bad was it, and how did you get past it?
Um, Boy, I mean, there's been so many things in my life that were real bad. I mean, well, the call that we talked about, that was a toughie. I didn't sleep for several nights after that one.
Hmm.
There were things that happened, and I don't know if I've ever told you about this, but I was
Hmm.
molested when I was sophomore in high school.
No, that we haven't hit that nail yet.
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure what got me through that one. I was going to a Catholic boarding school in California, and things happened, and uh, but I got through it, and I think there was a lot of denial on it. But then I kind of over the years, I was able to just say, okay, it happened, it's it's over. I'm not going to let it destroy me. I'm not going to, I mean, you hear about so many people, oh, I'm going to sue them because they did this to me. And it's like, no, I never went that route. I said, you know what? The perpetrator's punishment will come later. He was supposedly a man of God. And so I left it up to God to take care of him.
Yeah, he got the full punishment then.
Yes. Like I said, so uh, and I just basically moved on from it.
Hmm.
There's never been a problem. I mean, there probably was problems that were caused just because of that mindset in the back of my mind,
Hmm.
but I never let it. I mean, as you know, there's been a lot of relationships and whatnot, so
Yeah.
that could be part of it. But I don't try to place blame. I don't, I just accept it happened, and I'm not going to blame anybody about it. I'm not going to, you know, say, "Oh, poor me, this happened to me." You know what? I'm just going to go on. I'm going to live my life, and I'm never going to forget what happened. But on the same token, I'm not going to let it control what I do.
It's not going to own you.
Exactly.
So these things are amazing because we can live through them for years and stuff it, put it in the back of the mind, and just not deal with it. Sometimes it's because people feel they would get a negative response for it. Others
Mm-hmm.
feel like they don't want people to know what had happened. They're embarrassed, or they're still wounded from it. But the key thing is, regardless of what we've been through, there is hope. This life is longer than 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. Our life is eternal. And so it
Yes.
starts before we even are considered, and it goes eternally. This body will wear out, but who we are inside, that spiritual body, will last forever. And so the good thing to know is, well, you're going through the tough times, that God is there, and
Yes,
that
he
he
is.
loves you enough that he's not going to leave you out there. He is going to provide a way of escape from the pain, and
Mhm.
the strength and the hope for a greater future. And so, Bill, having been through all these things, what would you say to, if we had a couple of guys that came by and we're sitting around the barbecue, and everybody else is cleared out, and someone walked up and said, I'm really having a tough time. What would you give them for advice if they started telling you things that kind of resemble what you just told us?
Um, like I was saying, I mean, first of all, don't play the victim. You know,
Hmm.
you need to face up to what happened,
Hmm.
whatever it is, and then um, determine in your own mind that you're not going to let it, uh, affect your judgment, affect
Hmm.
your feeling. It happened to you or to me, but it's not. It's that other person who did it to us' problem.
Hmm.
They're the ones. We were the, as they say, innocent victim. but don't play the victim. You need to accept it and move on from it.
So if they said, well, how do I do that?
That, I think that's the tougher question, because everybody's different, and they each need to find their way to get past it. With me, I just, I don't know if it was strong will or luck or what it was, but I was able to just put it behind me and say, okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to try not to let it influence me any more than it has to. I'm not going to, play the blame game. And like I said, I went on and did it affect me in ways that I didn't realize? Absolutely. But whenever one of those things would come up, I would get through it. I wouldn't let it bog me down.
So going to get help is really a great piece of getting past it.
Yeah, like I said, I had to do it all on my own. I didn't have anybody to talk to about these things, whether it was the thing in high school or the
Other
ambulance
things
run,
along the way,
or other things along the way. I kind of got through it on my own, but because I got through it on my own, I can also have a perspective where I can talk to somebody that's gone through something and say, okay, let's talk about it. Let me tell you what happened to me and how I, how I kind of got past it. And like I said, I mean, it's one of those things I can't really put into words, but I can talk in generalities about how I got through it. Because I mean, like I say, there were things that happened to me, after that, and that, again, that was one of the things where you talk about not being able to tell somebody about it. When it happened, like I said, I was in a boarding school, and I wouldn't tell my parents about what happened. And it wasn't because I was ashamed or anything like that. It was, I didn't want them to blame themselves because they were the ones that put me at that school. So I was thinking of them rather than me. And maybe that's it. Is just, you got to think of those around you and other people, and not focus on you. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, but that's the only thing I can come up with. How I got through it.
That's a good step in the process. But the most important thing is to realize that we can't do this on just muscle or on being smart. It'll help us get to the next step. But if it's affecting how you're functioning, even if no one else notices, then it's there and you need to deal with it. And wherever you live in this world, we're connected to other people. Make sure that if you do have something that's a crisis, go get the help. If you don't know where to go, either contact the church that would be closest to you and see if they offer those kind of assistances. There's just a great variety. If you can't get beyond that, you can actually contact me. I'm still doing this kind of work in retirement, but that picture, this email address that I gave you, you can reach me that way, and I would be glad to help you with anything like that. Bill would actually, but he's out on the road driving, so it's harder for him to be there on the flip of a dime. But
I always try to get help. I mean, I'm not by any means suggesting don't. I'm just saying I had to tough it out. You don't.
Yeah, fortunately, in spite of toughing it out, you made it. Yes. But for many people, because they don't know how to tough it out, they get overwhelmed, and then they live years of uncomfortability, misery, pushing people away, not even knowing how to function in society. And we don't want that to happen to you. We don't want that to happen to anybody. So realize that if you come to the realization you're in trouble, you need some help, reach out for that help. And if you do, someone will get you to someone that can help you. The key is, though, that for me, God changed my life profoundly. I wouldn't have been alive long enough to take any of these classes. And I'm grateful he did. And but out of that, I came to a position of I realized everybody suffers at some point. So I want to be trained so I can help them through the suffering, so they don't have to get stuck and stay that way. And but when you were hanging around with us, doing all the things we were teaching that daily. Whether people on the team realized it or not, our team time together was actually training. So
Yes.
we were teaching the counseling, we were teaching how to manage things while we were out there helping others, so that not only did you go and help somebody, but when you go home, you can now deal with that new piece of emotional equipment that was hanging in your back there, and you were not really thinking about it till you're sitting in the middle of it. Once you
Yes.
realize you got another bit to deal with, just deal with it. Don't be amazed or amused, or don't be angry, because that's not going to get you back. That's not going to get you well.
No.
But be willing to reach out. And I'm pretty confident we can help you find somebody who will give that to you. Now, on the walls behind Bill, those are some of the pictures he's taken from all over.
Yes.
And Bill, do you have what's your website address?
The website is wcostellophoto.com. So WCOSTELLOPHOTO.com.
That way, if you'd like to see his beautiful pictures, you have a way to do so. And if you are interested in seeing the work that I do, my website is David W. E. And I would imagine there's about 500 pictures on there by now. And we always go through them and try to make sure that the ones that you're looking at are the best I can give. But we believe that because we put a lot of heart into them, sometimes it becomes the bridge between what's going on and where you want to be. So we're here to help on any level. But I wanted to make sure that you got to know Bill and know that, Bill's been a lot of things, but the most important thing is he's a survivor. And when he gave his life to God, that gave him the opportunity to know there is a surviving and a future
Yes.
and a hope. And now he's living that. And those of us who know him well are very proud of him and glad to have him as a friend.
Thank you.
And I hope that you folks will know that we do this because we care about you. We want your life to be beautiful and as good as it can be. And we want to encourage you to seek help wherever you can. Now, I'm going to put the picture back up there with the email address before we hang up here. So here it goes. That's where you could reach out to us if you are interested in winning one of the pictures or one of the albums. That's where you send your emails with your name, your phone number, your address, and would be fun to find out why it was you wanted it, and we will do a drawing next week and give the solution next week during our next broadcast. But if you have problems, if you have challenges, if some of what we said strikes a nerve with you, feel free to contact us at that email address, picturethisadvice@gmail.com. And we'll do our very best to help you through your challenge. I'm not God, but I sure work for him. And I'll be glad to do my best to reflect him in helping you. And so hopefully one of you is going to win that picture in that album. But all of you who reach out, whether we help you here or down the road, you reach out and there's a greater chance that someone can help you. Don't have to do it alone. Don't have to do it feeling like you should crawl in a hole and hide. There is hope and there is healing and there is a great future. We just have to get there. So let us know and we'll be glad to help you walk through that challenge. So as we finish for tonight, we want to thank you for being a part of this. And Bill, thank you for making yourself available.
I'm glad to do it. Anytime you need me, you know my phone number.
Absolutely. So let us know what we can do to help you. And, take that email address, and you never know when you have a piece of it on a piece of paper. You can share that with someone when it happens, because people usually don't think about they're going to deal with it. something just strikes a nerve, and all of a sudden, it's not that little thing hiding in the corner. It's a much bigger thing, and it's uncomfortable and kind of scary. So, any last words you'd like to share tonight, Bill?
Just kind of reiterate what you just said. If you need help, reach out. If not to us, to somebody. Like I say, the toughing it out is not the best way to go. If you have somebody you can talk to and work it through it, that is going to be the easiest way. Even though it might be a little scary opening up to somebody, in the long run, it's the best thing for you.
Absolutely. So we thank you for making time with us this evening. I'm going to close in prayer, and I'm going to be praying for everyone who's watching. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our friends that have signed in with us this day, and we were grateful to listen to Bill's story and what's gone on in his life. And we're grateful for those that we're talking to, for the stories that they live in, and what they've made it through, and what they need to have the courage to make through. Bless them and work in their lives and meet their needs, and draw us all closer to you. In Jesus' name. Amen. And we thank you so much for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you this next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific.